Hey y'all, it's been a little bit, but this is part 28 of the JFK Files. This one has some long documents, well, I won't say it's super long because it's nothing that I haven't already done, but one of them's got, or two of them have, no, hold on, one has 12. There's two that have 24 pages. I'm going to read like these smaller ones first and then come back and do different videos. Let me get this out of here. I'm sorry, that's bugging the hell out of me. Okay, let me exit out. Okay, so this is a secret document. Like I said, this is JFK Files. I'm sure this is from their Senate Select Committee, one of them on something. But anyways, 20th of April, 1977, identification of sensitive source. The sensitive source cited in paragraph 4, page 29 of book 5, final report of SSC to study governmental operations was an audio operation against the Cuban embassy in Paris, France, encrypted UN Sierra. It is defunct and the files are retained in archives in Warrington. The French desk will order for us if needed a copy of the reference communication P like Paris 1664 IN 69266 dated 27th of November 1963 is attached. It was located in volume 4 of Rolando Cabela's official file 201-252-234 UN Snafu 12 cited in paragraph 3 of the cable is marked afraid or Frady maybe Cuban alternate delegate to UNESCO and an unwitting FI source at that time. Please note that a copy of this cable was provided to Mr. Breckenridge to carry to a meeting on 11th of June 1976 with Senators Hart and Schweiker, Chris Hopkins, and Ladd Task Force JFK. Let's see. It says, yeah, these are a bunch of different, I'm sure, offices that they sent this to, and this one's really bad. It says something is now active member and authorized handle OD yoke, classified clear text, routing indicator. I can't see what this says. Yeah. Is now active and the member of ACNAT. I don't know. Routing indicator, and then only QBark traffic handled by Ottawa, and then the end of message. It was a bad one. Okay, so this has 4 pages. Let's see, this is 14th of February 1977 memorandum subject Nestor Antonio Moreno Lopez, AMAS 27 and 201-312-091. Moreno was born on 25th of August 1921 in Havana, Cuba. His father was a Cuban senator from 1940 to 44, and the Cuban Minister of Public Works in 1944. Moreno became a lawyer and continued to live in comfortable circumstances. He became involved in the anti-Batista movement, apparently in the late 1950s, and ultimately in the 26th of July movement. After the revolution, one of his clients was Camilo Cienfuegos. In Miami, after defection, he was associated with the JURE. Moreno's specific activities in the anti-Batista movement were not reported and apparently were unexceptional. A point worth noting about his activities before defection is his acquaintance with Tad Zolk, something like that, at least by 1959, and with Jorge Volsky. Moreno's background as a lawyer did not prepare him for active revolutionary involvement when he defected in April of 1961. Therefore, he associated with anti-Castro exiles, particularly Volsky, but did not become actively involved. He was assessed in 1963 as being unfriendly to CIA. About February 1963, Moreno and Enrique Callado Rivera reportedly collaborated in the formulation of an operational plan to overthrow the Castro government. They discussed it with Jorge, or maybe it's George, I don't know, but that's how you say it in Spanish. Jorge Volsky, who then passed it to Tad Zolk. Volsky and Zolk apparently conspired to have the plan presented to the political authorities, Robert Hurwitz, and the Kennedy administration in Washington in order to bypass the distrusted operational authorities of the CIA. Volsky originally took full credit for the plan, called Leonardo Plan, which eventually became known as the Amtrak operation. The Leonardo Plan was well thought out and caught the fancy of the Kennedy administration. Hurwitz brought it to the CIA with the blessings of the Department of State. Thus, from the very beginning, Zolk, Volsky, and Moreno, each of whom had outside interests to some degree in conflict with AM Trunk, were involved in AM Trunk policy and planning meetings. Moreover, all three were to some degree antipathetic to the agency for various reasons and were difficult to or impossible to control. Moreno's indiscretions were a serious problem that limited his effectiveness as a direct participant in the AM Trunk operation by arousing the concern of other participants. While the station attempted to cut out Volsky and Zolk after the initial policy discussions in Washington, Volsky always remained involved to some degree and kept Zolk fully informed. Under the circumstances, the censure of Moreno for talking to Zolk was just an attempt to plug one of many leaks. The fact is that Moreno, Zolk, and Volsky believed they had an inside track in Washington because of their contacts there, and all three disliked following agency instructions that conflicted with their own diverse interests. However, because JM Wave Station and AMICE 14, Miguel A. Diaz Asalgue objected to Moreno's continued involvement in the AM Trunk operation after learning of his free talk with Zolk and others. The station terminated Moreno's involvement in the sensitive aspect of AM Trunk in November 1963. Since Moreno was one of the original authors of AM Trunk and already disliked the agency, one can imagine his feelings at that juncture. He refused at first to take a position on the Rebel Army radio program and caused problems in general. By January 1964, Moreno was actually interfering in the AM Trunk operation by giving demoralizing, conflicting information to AM Trunk 9, for example, and attempting to debrief returnees on behalf of Volsky and Zolk. Moreno was fired, therefore, by Rabel on station instructions from the Rebel Army radio program in February of 1964 and terminated by the station as of 5th of March. Shortly after this termination, Moreno, using Volsky as an intermediary, approached Mr. G. Harvey Sum with the proposal similar to the Leonardo Plan. The COS met with Sum on 1st of April 1964 and advised him how to put off Moreno. In August or September of 1964, Moreno left Miami and took a position as a Spanish language professor in South Carolina. In conclusion, Moreno apparently was a sincere anti-Castro revolutionary, but his dislike for and distrust of the agency, which was undoubtedly stimulated by Zolk and Volsky, made his involvement in AM Trunk a liability to the security of the operation. It appears that Moreno, like many Cubans of the upper middle class, had little sense of security. It is obvious that he trusted Zolk and Volsky far beyond what normal prudence would dictate. He probably was not a Castro agent, but he did help leak operational details and general plans to people who helped to spread the information more widely and who themselves were not trustworthy. And then lad JFK Task Force, I guess, and then 1977, Marty Miller, and the copy is filed 201-312-091. Okay, so then this 201-050-539, 20th of June of 1963. Chief of Station, Rio de Janeiro. Smedify information concerning Tad Zolk. We just looked at that guy. I get chapsticks. My lips get chapped. Okay, attached is an SM Edify report concerning Thaddeus Zolk, which includes Smedify's whatever traces on Zolk. Station has the following information regarding Ignacy Sachs, who is mentioned in the attachment. Albie Cuspid from Albie Cuspid 4th of May 1961. Ultimate source of Henrik Rankowski, a former member of the Polish commercial mission in Brazil. Ignacy Sachs, upon his return from India, but will not work in the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but will be reassigned to the Latin American section of the Polish Ministry of Foreign Trade. He recently wrote a report on Latin America based upon material contained in the South and Central American press. He reportedly had a falling out with the superiors in the foreign ministry, and hence the transfer. Albie Cuspid from Albie Cuspid 5, 30th of May 1961. Ultimate source, Slowakians, I don't know, a Polish diplomat. I'm sorry, I'm messing that name up. Ignacy Sachs, after a period of disgrace, has a new job, economic assistance for underdeveloped countries in Department 3 of the Ministry of Foreign Trade. And then Frederick L. Rowski, maybe. The attached info was not sent to the FBI. Hence, I don't know. Sometimes I can't read cursive when it's like that. Okay, so Thaddeus Zolk. The station copies of the original reports on Zolk have been destroyed. I attach, however, a memorandum consisting of selected entries from his card. All the information is from the same source. A Polish immigrant who knew Zolk personally and also had informants in the Polish embassy. There's little doubt that Zolk was pro-communist at the time and that he cooperated with the Ignacy Sachs, a cousin who was employed by the press section of the Polish embassy and provided him with the information. It would, however, be unwise to jump to the conclusion that this collaboration took the form of espionage, since Zolks does not seem to have made any secret of the relationship. I can find no evidence that Ignacy Sachs was an intelligence officer, but he seems to have been an active propagandist. He returned to Poland in 1954. A report from the same source dated June of 1956 stated that he then occupied the Brazilian desk at the Polish Institute for International Affairs. Okay, Thaddeus Zolk, 1926, nationality is a Pole, naturalized U.S. citizen in 1955, and occupation is journalist. June of 1947, used to work for the Brazil Herald and now for France Press. Is on good terms with the Polish legation, who he supplies with information on Brazil. One of the party who accompanied Raul Fernandez on his mission to Montevideo. He's the son of Sue Warren Zolk, I guess. Okay, as of December 1947, subsource Harold Horan of New York, regarding subjects efforts to find employment in American press circles. Mr. Horan tried to help him due to a letter of introduction from Zolk's uncle, is that John Wiley, an American ambassador in Lisbon, but desisted on finding that Zolk has been connected with the Rio de Janeiro communist paper diatrices. Anyway, February 1948, further details of subject's efforts to find a job in the United States. He's to work on the Palestine Commission of the UNO. As from middle of February, March 1948, subject still in New York and writing regular reports on U.S. political affairs and personalities to the Polish legation in Rio de Janeiro, trying to get a job with U.S. press through the influence of Mrs. J. Wiley. September of 1949, subject at present in New York, married to an American girl and working in one of the American news agencies. Since arrival of new legation, Warsaw, he was in touch with the minister, the secretary, and the ex-press attaché, the late Wakinski, told by Warsaw Poles in Washington that to be useful, he cannot have a job with the press department of the Washington Polish Embassy or the Polish Press Bureau in New York. Using his uncle introduction letters, the U.S. Ambassador John Wiley, married to Polish-born Irene Baruch, who is the sister of the first Mrs. Zolk. He obtained a job with the Americans on orders from the Poles. Subject is helped financially by the Polish legation in Rio de Janeiro. Thanks to introduction letters from the Wileys, Zolk penetrated several circles in New York. He's writing reports to Rio de Janeiro and working with people in New York and is considered useful for future tasks. June of 1951, nephew of newly appointed U.S. ambassador to Panama. He is now trying to get a job in Panama as American correspondent. He has a job with UP in New York. In Rio de Janeiro in 1947 and 48, was fellow traveler and informer of communist nucleus on the staff of the communist newspaper Diatrices. I don't know how to say that. Also worked for France Press and reported regularly on the Polish colony in Rio de Janeiro. June of 1951, visited Rio de Janeiro from 11/6 of 51 to 6/27 of 51 when he returned, or maybe, I'm sorry, 6/11 of 51 and then 6/27 of 51 when he returned to New York. Whilst in Rio, he was in touch with Ignacy Sachs, to whom he brought information from the USA. The two are relatives and boyhood friends, and subject writes personal letters to Sachs containing matters of interest to the Polish legation. Subject also has useful contacts in New York in political and artistic circles obtained through his aunt. Is believed to be trying to obtain American citizenship through having married an American woman. September of 1951, personal reports to the U.S. ambassador to Panama, John Wiley, continue to be forwarded by the Polish legation in Rio de Janeiro to Warsaw via subject. And then March of 1952, source met subject in America recently. Subject volunteered that he obtained much information on the differences of policy between the British and American governments on the Persian problem through his aunt, the wife of John Wiley, and that he kept the Polish government informed through Ignacy Sachs. He boasted acquaintance with Drew Pearson and the Shah of Persia. And that's the end of that one. Okay, I'm going to stop it here. I'll do some of these other ones probably tomorrow because I've done a lot of recording today. I want to sit down and read. So anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.